So the idea behind Wolfenstein The New Order was Machine Games was like, Wolfenstein takes place in the 1940s, but what if we fast forwarded time and it took place in the 1960s instead? And everyone was like, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then the following year, Machine Games was like, Wolfenstein The New Order takes place in the 1960s, so what if we rewound time and made it take place in the 1940s? So Wolfenstein The Old Blood is a direct prequel to The New Order, taking place right before the start of The New Order. In fact, this game ends right where The New Order picks up. The Old Blood came out in 2015, the year following the success of The New Order, and was created directly because of the success of The New Order. This game is sometimes referred to as a DLC, and I think it was planned that way originally, but eventually it was released as a standalone project. But really, I do think of it as being a different game than The New Order, mostly because the two games' priorities with regards to gameplay and story are very different from one another. The Old Blood story is honestly nothing great, and that's a little disappointing after the quality of writing that we saw in The New Order. It would have been cool if there had been story elements that made this game a deeply impactful experience on its own, but I think most of the emotional reaction I had to this game was just from the ending, and seeing how hopeful the characters are for a mission that, as we know from witnessing the events of the first game, goes horribly wrong by all accounts. They are gearing up for a mission that we know is doomed to fail, and so you feel something because of that, and so that's kind of cool. But aside from that, the story really didn't make me feel anything at all. The writing just wasn't anything particularly exceptional, and that, for me, is the biggest difference between these two games. While The New Order took great pains to try to bring you into its world and get you emotionally invested in its story, in this one, all of that takes a backseat to gameplay. But the good thing is that the gameplay in this is actually pretty freaking great. The New Order had some stealth mechanics, and that was an option for a good chunk of that game, to sneak around and kill Nazis quietly. For me, the biggest thing that makes The Old Blood stand apart from The New Order in terms of gameplay is just how much of the game you're able to do stealthily. Now, of course, this ain't Thief, and you do have to run and gun a ton, which rhymes, by the way. I'm a rapper. But I absolutely felt like more of a spy this time around, which was an aspect of the game I honestly really enjoyed. BJ's like, how do you do, fellow Nazis? The entire first hour or so of the game is entirely built around stealth mechanics, and I thought it was just good fun. In fact, I don't know if you were able to do this in The New Order, but in this one, there were entire sections full of enemies that I straight up snuck past. And that's kind of sad just because the gunplay is so fun, but at the same time, I think it's really awesome that this game feels like it respects its players' choices to go loud or be quiet. While The New Order leaned really hard into its futuristic sci-fi aspects, since The Old Blood is a prequel taking place some 14 years earlier, there aren't as many great mechanical beasts or robots, but there's still quite a lot of that, actually. I read some others' opinions about this game, and one thought that I found to be quite insightful is that The New Order seems to be based more around metal, in the sense that all of the buildings and the enemies you face in there are shaped and constructed by man and with man-made materials. But this game feels a little different because the environments are more rooted in stone and in earth. Especially towards the end, you spend a lot of time in underground caves, and much of your playtime, probably like 60% or more, is spent inside of Castle Wolfenstein itself. And I genuinely think that this first section inside of the castle is just peak Wolfenstein. It is absolutely phenomenal. Without the heavy story emphasis, what you're left with is really just kind of meat and potatoes boomer shooter style Nazi killing, which I just had a blast with and loved it. You get a cool pipe weapon at the start of this game. It's kind of goofy because BJ just takes a pipe from the walls of Castle Wolfenstein and then proceeds to go through the entire rest of the game with it. And this man has a lot of trust in this pipe. He ascends huge cliff walls with it, and he uses it to slide down huge zip lines. It's like, my dude, you regularly split this pipe in half to kill dudes, and you're just using it to slide down over 1,000-foot falls? Like, you feel safe. You feel safe doing that. But I mean, I guess I get why BJ would be confident in the pipe, because he is wearing plot armor after all, so, can't be hurt too bad. Like I mentioned, the story of this game is kind of bland. The antagonist for the first half of the game is a big blonde guy who loves his dogs. But then BJ kills his dogs and eats all their food, which is very worrying considering that they established that the blonde dude feeds his dogs prisoners. So I don't really know what BJ is eating, but Blondie tries to get revenge on BJ by wearing a big dumb ironmonger suit like Jeff Bridges from Iron Man 1. So I guess wanting revenge over the death of his dog makes this dude like a Nazi John Wick. So he's the first villain of the game, and then the second villain is just some evil Nazi occult researcher lady who I think gets like 2 scenes in the game, 3 maybe. It's just disappointing, especially when the game takes control away from the player and makes you watch a cutscene with the villains, because it's like, I know I'm supposed to be intimidated, or I'm supposed to be scared right now. You know, I'm supposed to feel like fearful because these villains are supposed to be evil Nazis and they're supposed to be scaring the crap out of you. But at the same time, it's like, I don't care. I don't care. The story's just it's not there. It's like, let's get this over with so I can get back to the killing, okay? But again, the area in which the game shines most is undeniably the gameplay. You use 1940s weapons, so you don't get a cool laser gun like in the New Order, but I'm completely fine with that. Maybe it was just me, but I felt like you had a lot more opportunities to use the sniper in this game, which was just a lot of fun. So I mentioned that the New Order was defined by the presence of metal, whereas this was defined by the presence of stone. And I think that really carried over into the enemy design as well, leading to Machine Games introducing some supernatural enemies to their interpretation of the series. Towards the end of this one, Nazi zombies are introduced, and there's a big, giant, blind mummy-looking creature as the final boss. I have mixed feelings about this, honestly. I do think zombies are overplayed, and around the time when this game came out, back in 2015, zombies were already completely overplayed. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that Call of Duty had already come out with their phenomenal zombies mode. Through those games, COD was dominating the mainstream with Nazi zombies already, and that's in addition to the popularity of stuff like The Walking Dead, Left 4 Dead, or even something sillier like Plants vs. Zombies. So when I was playing this, part of me was like, I just don't care about the zombies I'm facing in Wolfenstein because they're not unique, they're not special. But at the same time, the zombies are still a ton of fun to fight, just because the weapons in this game are so satisfying and well made. All the guns feel wonderful, and so when fighting zombies, the guns really pack a punch, if you'll excuse the pun. And even though zombies kind of suck, they're still fun. It's still enjoyable, it's still like a blast to play. So I think if you go into this one looking to have fun, you'll have a fantastic time. Prior to making this video, I had only played the game once, years ago, back around the time it came out, and I didn't like it. I thought the Old Blood was just kind of lame, and I was frustrated, because after the precedent set by the New Order, I was disappointed by how lackluster the story was. But I definitely appreciate the game as a whole a lot more now. I think at least in part due to the fact that I knew that the story wasn't that great going into it. You know, my expectations were very low, and so I was surprised by the experience as a whole, I guess. You see, I remembered not enjoying the game, and so I was really pleasantly surprised whenever the game actually ended up being great. So again, if you're looking to play a game that is fun, then look no further. There are definitely some funny moments, like with BJ quoting Hamlet, for instance.
Alas, poor Yurik. Oops.
So I think this game has heart. Really, this is not the game to play when you're looking for something to be emotionally invested in, but if you're just wanting some good old-fashioned Nazi killing, then here you are. But yeah, this game's pretty short. It took me about 5 hours on the hard difficulty. But really, if you enjoyed the New Order, or even if you just want a fun shooter and don't care about Wolfenstein whatsoever, I'd 100% recommend this. So yeah, I love Wolfenstein, and thank you for watching. Have a nice night.